Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a video on how you can write a really good supporting information section for your Assistant Psychologist application. Now before I start I do want to make a little disclaimer about where these tips are coming from. So these tips are all just coming from my personal experience. I have done about 20 applications before even getting my first interview. So these are just things that I've learned through trial and error, so do keep that in mind when you're watching this video. Please be sure to like this video if you like it and do subscribe. I've got loads more exciting videos to help you get your assistant psychologist job. My next video I think is going to be on how to be reflective, so do subscribe so that you can be notified when that video does get uploaded. So let's get into the video. Now I'm going to start off with some more general tips first and then go into how to write your actual supporting information. Now my first tip is to be concise. I would say around 700 words is the sweet spot. So when I first started writing my applications, they were around 1,000 words, which is crazy long. So you need to bear in mind that these people reading your application have read loads, and to be honest they're probably just going to skim through them, so you don't want it to be too long because that means you're probably waffling a bit too much, but then you also don't want it to be too short where you're leaving out loads of detail. So I'd say around 700 is definitely a good number. Now by no means is this like a limit or a kind of minimum. For my last application I did for the job that I'm working now, my application I think was around 800 words. And it's going to depend on how many points they include in their person specification, and also if they ask any questions they want you to answer specifically in your supporting information. So it is a very flexible number, but just try and be as concise as possible. You want to show that you're passionate about the service and the client group that this application is for. Now, of course, you're not going to be applying for your dream job every time, so you may have to say a bit of a white lie, but that's fine because you are still doing the kind of job that you want to do. Obviously, if you don't want to work for that client group, don't do it, but it's fine to kind of exaggerate how passionate you are for the job, because by the end of the day, if there are two identical applications and one person says that they're super passionate about the client group versus someone who doesn't mention that, they're going to go for the person who's more passionate, you know? Do mention your future ambitions, so include that you want to get onto the clinical doctorate, and maybe even include that you want to be a clinical psychologist for the NHS when you're older. The reason why you should say this is because they want to know whether the money that they will be investing in you through your salary, whether that is going to benefit the NHS in the future, or whether that's going to benefit their service in the future, you know? When you get an assistant psychologist job, you're going to gain so much valuable experience. So they want to know that this experience that they're giving to you is going to be used in the future to hopefully benefit them. It's a business by the end of the day, so they don't just want to be chucking away money that's not going to be invested in their own organisation in the future. So do mention your future goals. If they do ask you to answer any specific questions, do answer them. In feedback that I received from one of my interviews, they mentioned how other people didn't answer the questions and therefore they didn't even make it to the interview. They didn't even read their applications because they didn't have those answers. So just make sure you do it. If that's an easy method for them to kind of filter out people who they don't want, like, just answer the question. It's not that hard. Before you even start writing your application, you want to think generally about what skills you have that could really benefit them and the job description that they have put out. So, for example, they might mention something about service development being a large part of the role. So you want to think about a time in the past where you have either improved your quality of care or even improved the quality of a service, or you could think about a time where you've tracked progression or changes in a service, or even something to do with research, because when you research during your undergrad degree, you are sometimes tracking a change within a group, so you could mention that as well. And one of my biggest points is do not copy and paste. Do not copy and paste.
Do not copy and paste.
Guys, I'm telling you, as tempting as it may be, don't copy and paste your applications because they will know. Yes, some of the person specifications do come up quite frequently in different jobs. However, they will have unique ones specific to the job, and they will know. It's very clear when someone has copied and pasted. Now, by no means am I saying start from scratch every time, because that is kind of a waste and stupid. Definitely use your previous applications to build on and as a base, but don't copy and paste, because they're going to know, and it comes across as lazy and just that you're not very interested in the job if you're not spending time writing new applications. So don't do it. In terms of practicalities, how I would write my applications is I would look at the job description and the person specification. Sometimes I would print it out, other times I would just copy and paste it onto a Word document, but either way I would annotate examples of how I have the quality that is specified in the person specification. So what I would do is annotate the person specification and think about examples in the past where I have shown that point. An actual example from my previous application is for the person specification point of able to communicate sensitive information to client, family and staff. So for this one I said, my communication skills were largely improved in this role through the responsibility of sharing the sensitive information of their diagnoses with service users and their carers. You have to pinpoint examples in the past that show that you have the quality. It's not good enough to say, I'm a good communicator, you know? They want to know that you can actually do it, and so they need an example to believe that. If you have room in terms of your word count, then do try and be reflective here and there. But that is kind of more for the interview stage, I'd say. I don't think you have enough room in your supporting information to be reflective. I know in mine, personally, I wasn't that reflective. Yeah, I would have a few bits here and there that were, but it wasn't continuous throughout my application, you know. By being reflective, I mean stating how your previous experience will impact your future work. So saying what went well and why you do it again in the future, or what didn't go well and why you're not going to do that in the future and what you do instead. Just showing that you can learn and that you're actively seeking improvement in your own work. In terms of structure, I would start at the beginning with why I'm applying for this job, why I found it interesting, why I'm passionate for this specific client group, and I would also mention my future ambitions in this section as well. I think that's a good way to introduce your supporting information. I'm going to give you guys the first line of my application just because I think it's helpful. So this one was for a stroke and dementia service, and this is my opening line. When I saw this vacancy, it excited me because I'm very passionate about working with older adults, as well as being interested in the way psychology can support people living with chronic physical health conditions. So that's how I started it. That shows my passion, I think. The body of your supporting information is going to be all about the person specification and showing the skills that you have that will improve their team, really. And in this section, I think the best way to organise it is by going through each of your jobs that you've done. Now, don't mention all of the jobs that you have worked, but only mention the ones that are helpful to this role or that hold the key skills that are helpful for this role. I only mentioned, I think, 3 of my jobs that I've worked where I've had a lot of jobs. I just mentioned the ones that are truly valuable. Don't mention anything in your supporting information that are included in your application. So I know at the beginning you have to fill out loads of data which say like your grades at university and college and also basically your CV. So don't mention your grades from university. So there's no need to mention anything that has been included in your previous parts of your application because it's a waste of your words. And at the end I would usually finish with how the trust values resonated with me, because I thought it was a good way to end. I didn't just want to end on a person specification point, I thought that was too choppy, and so I think saying how you relate to their trust values is really good. So I also mentioned how my studies at university encouraged me to be involved with the service. I just think this shows how your interests have evolved over time, which is quite nice, you know, quite a nice note to end on. And again, it's just not choppy. I didn't want to end on a person specification point. And just to mention, I know I said like to annotate the person specification, but obviously when you write it, you're not writing bullet points, you're not writing in note form, you're writing in full sentences. So I just use the annotated version as kind of my plan and my base, and then filled it out more. You really want to make it flow throughout. You don't want to be jumping from one point to another. Try and make it flow as best as possible. That's why I suggest doing it in terms of different jobs. So saying like, in this job I learnt these skills, and then mentioning each of the person's specification points. Another thing, do include the keywords that they use. So for example, communication of sensitive data, safeguarding. If they use words like supervision, like don't change these words out for things that are synonymous with them, because if they're skim reading through your application, you want their eyes to be drawn to those things so that they know, yes, they have got that skill, yes, they have done this before. Because by the end of the day, they're reading a lot of applications, and so you want to help them out a little bit. By no means do you have to have it in order of how they've put it. Just do what makes sense. Just make sure to include those keywords, because I think that will help. Now, I think those are all of my tips and main ways that I think help me get an interview. So please do leave any questions down below in the comments and I will try and answer. I know this video has been kind of disorganised, but that's just kind of the person I am. I do hope this video can help you, and do like this video if you liked it, and please do subscribe, because my next video is going to be on how to be reflective, because that is a key skill you need to do really well in your interview. So until next time guys, I'll see you later.